as us being physical entities, if we were not physical at first, then we're talking about a projection of ourselves and an illusion brought about to fool us into thinking that these physical bodies is us. And in order to do that, it has to register as big, just like a movie registers on a big screen in the theater. You see what I'm saying? But it also it's in the movie Men in Black. When they're trying to find out some stuff, they gotta go to this little dog. That represents the dog star. And he said, you know, they're trying to get this little. They said that the galaxy is on Orion's belt, and Orion was a little cat. Because you know, Setman also represents the god Sirius too, as well as one of the oldest. And Gerald Massey is figured this out, that one of the oldest representations of the Sphinx is the goddess Setman, the resting place of the lion. But then again, on the other hand, Sphinx is also called Harmaku, or Harmaket. And Harmaket means Horus on the horizon. But Harmaket and Harmaku, you got Ma up in there, in Harmaket. So that's Mayat too. So this Horus Mayat is also a form of Sekhmet too, which is one of the oldest forms of the Great Mother, as Massey explains in his book Ancient Egypt Light of the World, as well as your boy Robert Masters, the goddess Sekhmet. But going back to this, little cat had a ball on its neck, and there was a whole universe in that little ball. But they had to go to and so they were shaking the dog in the movie Men in Black. And he said, you humans, you always think that everything has to be big to be legitimate or to be worth anything. You see, it is the atom that explodes the earth. You see what I'm saying? Something invisible like gas can burn down this house and kill everybody in it. So the concept of this seed being in us and all what we are, the white boy calls it now nanotechnology. And basically that is the hardest seed that is inside of us, and that's all who we are.
So is that seed like the chakra system a type of spiritual seed, or is it a real gland?
No, this is an invisible particle of light. It is the particle of light that is now the primordial unknown God that existed before this universe came into existence. It is the Alpha and the Omega. It's the Christ seed. So we're talking about a finite spiritual seed. And the chakra system is nothing but manifestation of the energy that make up the body. But ultimately, that concentrated energy is this particular seed. But this seed is the ultimate reality in the universe. And it's inside of every last one of the original people. Now, we must understand this right now. Everybody walking around on the earth, including black people, are not necessarily the original people now. You see what I'm saying? Because we got tons and tons of offspring to you have now got this basically people that have a spirit, but not necessarily a soul. There's a difference. A spirit is what animates you and even animates white people. And even animates the roach and the rat. That's just the energy that moves on the earth plane. Electricity. You see what I'm saying? But a soul is something different. Not everybody has a soul. You see what I'm saying? Not everybody has a soul. Because you got those that wasn't created outside of the earth. Which means that they are terrestrial beings. Their origin begins here on this planet and in the physical. Then you have those that comes from time memorial and comes from the primordial origins of the universe, and that's who the original chosen seed is. They ain't chosen because they have always been here. So we need not argue on who has a soul or not. Just understand that obviously, even if it's debatable whether a lot of black people have it, we don't even argue on that. What we do say is we are the original people, so we don't have to worry about who the ones we talking about who have the souls. That's what the soul is. First of all, the soul is a sun. You get the word solar, you get the word sol, which also means sun. Your word salt comes from the word sol, which also comes from the word soul. But that little salt seed is the ultimate form of alchemy. Then they talk about it in the salt of the earth and the different concepts. They got salt all through the Bible and stuff. That's a form of the Christ. The soul is a sun, but it's not just any sun. It is the most ancient form of all there is. It is from the nothing that crystallized into this little seed. From the nothing, you get the absolute. So it comes from the nothing, which is beyond the known universe in the triple blackness of space. So when you get a seed, it's not just like a sun. When you get that kind of sun, you're talking about the ultimate reality in the universe. It is beyond anything we know and have within us. So ultimately, the soul represents the sun, a sun or a star inside of us. But we're not just talking about any kind of doggone star. We're talking about the ultimate star, because this star comes from the most outermost ethers of everything known, called a nothing. Now what is a star? In the core of every star burns this black substance. Carbon. But the one inside of the original human has been dormant so many years, for 13 million years in the physical, and billion years probably on the terrestrial plane, or even different aspects of the plane, but even before it became to a physical level, until this thing has been shut down so much. You know how you can bottle cider and it turns into alcohol or whatever, and something ferments. Well, this one has been fermenting for billions of years, and that's the soul that we have inside of us. So it is even powerful than anything in the doggone universe, and ultimately anything that is not human got to bow down to the human. Or in this case, bow down to the black man and black woman.
Let's fucking around for actual effort.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Vibrations. I'm Raven Geary. Today on our program, one of the hottest properties making the talk show circuit, Shahrazad Ali. An established writer indeed, Ms. Ali is best known as the author of The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman. A very controversial and, if I may say so, a very critical view of life of today's black woman. She joins us today in our studio, and of course we'd like to welcome you today to Vibrations.
Well, thank you, Raven, for inviting me.
Basically, it's your premise that the black woman is out of sync with the natural order of things. Can you explain that?
Well, it's a very sensitive subject, and certainly I believe that I have tried to approach it from a very sensitive angle. What I have actually said is that the black woman's disrespect and rebellion against the leadership and the authority of the black man is a direct cause of the breakdown in the black family structure. It's not an attack on us as black women. It's just saying that in the breakdown of any relationship, both parties have to take responsibility. And as black women, we have been protected and insulated from any kind of examination about what our share of the responsibility is in the breakdown of the black family. my book represents the first platform, certainly, that the black man has ever had to air his grievances about the black woman, because no one would ever listen to him. They have only listened to us.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book itself? What brought you to this point of having to sit down and use your pen to write this book?
Well, actually, it was my first book. In 1985, I authored How Not to Eat Pork or Life Without the Pig. And at that time, I was going around doing what I was calling Get Off That Hog lectures. And during my travels, I noted that I would take the microscope and show people how you can't kill the trichina worm in pork by cooking it. Heat was not destroying the worm, and I would show them, the difference, and demonstrate how FDA was now using radiation to try to kill the worms in pork because cooking was not working, which is what we had always been told. And during that time, a lot of black men were in agreement to get off eating pork. They wanted to change their eating habits, and they were happy to find out some information that might possibly save their lives. But it was black women who were the most adamant, who refused to change meal planning techniques, seasoning food, cooking techniques. And so I said, it's interesting. I said, if we are refusing to provide the black man with the proper physical food when we know that food is what sustains life, then what else are we withholding from him? Possibly there are some other areas, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, that we are affecting his behavior by what we do or what we withhold and refuse to give. And that led me to try to find out. We've always heard that the black man leaves the black family, abandons his woman and children, won't take care of the children, won't work, stays out all night, turns into a drunk, takes drugs. We've heard a lot of negative things. Most of them are true. But I wanted to find out what happens before he gets to that point. What leads up to the breakdown? We've never gone back to try to find out what happens in the relationship between the black man and a black woman that makes him go off and do all of these bad things. To assume that this is just normal, natural behavior for black men would be to assume that he is naturally bad. And I do not believe that the man that God gave to us as a mate is a naturally bad person. And so I wanted to try to examine what goes on with him. What's his side of the story?
Did a black man ask you to write this book?
Oh, no, certainly not. I think they were just as surprised as black women. Many of them approached the title of the book with a little apprehension because they have not had a champion. We have never had a black woman who actually stood up and said, I'm standing up for the black man's side of the story. We know what our side is, and both sides are true. We have done some very dreadful things to each other. And I don't exonerate black men, which is kind of a misconception that people have. I just say that we know his side. What about our side? And we do have a side. We have adopted some wrong standards. We are judging our men many times by the wrong value system. We are using his children sometimes against him. We have been told that the only benefit that a black man provides in a home is money. And if he does not give us money to take care of those kinds of financial provisions, that he has no value. And what my research has proven to me is that a black man, any man in any home, provides much more than financial support. The man provides guidance, instruction, discipline for the children, which we sorely need in our black homes. He provides gratification, fulfillment, protection. I mean, there are so many other values. And these values are the ones that are missing in our children today, which is why many black children are in the street, out of control themselves, disrespectful, don't have any regard for anyone. And most of us are scared of them, and everybody else is, because nobody has a way into them to try to gain any control over them. So I maintain that a return to traditional family values, certain clearly defined gender responsibilities for black men and black women in running a home and a relationship will help us to produce a better child. If we produce a better child, certainly we'll have a better future and a better nation.
And saying all of this, and as calling yourself a champion and having, if I may say, the courage to write this book and stand by it, you've caused a stir. This book is very controversial. What are you hearing from public reaction?
Well, I don't think that it's an issue among black women about whether or not the book is true or not. The issue is that I was not supposed to tell. These are inside secrets and things that we have never let our men know about. And many times what is that we say? He can't handle me. Well, many times he can't handle us because he doesn't know what it is he's trying to handle. He doesn't understand what motivates us. We have become very adept, many of us, at being able to do something right in front of his eyes and then convince him that that's not what he really saw at all and that it didn't happen. And so we've kept him kind of confused.
Excuse me, do you realize that there are many bookstores, and in particular black bookstores, that have refused to carry the Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman?
I think that that's been overblown. Right now, the book is carried in over 5,000 bookstores here in this country and about 2,000 abroad. The book is becoming a bestseller in London. And to date, we only know of 2 bookstores in the entire country who refuse to carry the book.
May I tell you that there is at least one in Tallahassee?
There may be, but
and
it's their loss if they're doing that.
The response we got from that book owner was that your book had nothing, absolutely nothing constructive.
Was that a woman who gave you those comments?
Yes, it was.
Oh, how surprising. Okay.
Let's talk about some of the things that seem to be upsetting people that people are talking
there
about.
certainly have been a lot of things taken out of context. Anyone who's ever looked at me or seen, witnessed some of the talk shows, they actually exploit a lot of issues. They take them out of context. They want to sensationalize them to build up their ratings to have a good show. So I really appreciate this opportunity to just sit down and have a fireside chat about the book.
Well, I'm glad you're
without
here.
all the fireworks and everything.
You say black women, and I quote you as saying, nag, 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 and that we are essentially responsible for pushing our men away by doing so.
A lot of times we take a position because of our own emotional mechanisms. We harass our men too much. We nag our men too much, and we keep his mind and his head so bundled up and bogged down with all of our personal idiosyncrasies about our day-to-day personal relationship with him that a lot of times we don't free his mind up to go out and to plan sanely for our future and for the future of our children. Many of them come to us every day and they almost have to do a wind test. They don't know what's going on. They don't know who they're going to meet because we have a lot of reactions. We tend to think as black women that a successful relationship and one where we're happy is one where everything goes our way. And the first time it goes another kind of a way, then we go into hell, turmoil in our brain, and we start deciding, oh, I've got terrible problems with this man. He won't do what I want him to do. When our men have a side.
Let me give that side according to Scheherazade Ali, okay? You say in your book,
okay,
and I'm quoting, come on. The black man in America is the only male on earth, including every continent, who is disrespected by the women in his nation.
That's true.
This situation does not exist anyplace else among the billions of people inhabiting our planet, except here in America.
That's right.
The other black men, the yellow men, the red men, the brown men, and the white men are all honored and respected by their respective nations. All other women recognize and accept that the man is the authority, the ruler, and the leader. Only here in the United States, in the black nation, scattered throughout the United States, is the black man neglected. That's pretty powerful.
And it's absolutely true. We have been displaced. A lot of us don't really understand what slavery actually did to us and how much psychological trauma it did to us regarding what our proper roles are with each other, what our responsibilities are as man and woman in our various communities and relationships. We have never been debriefed from slavery. Not really. We have just, we know we had that history, but we don't know how it affected us. We don't know how much of our actual culture we lost, how much of our ideas were taken from us. We know that our religion was taken from us. We know that our names were taken from us. But we don't know how many other standards of day-to-day life have been removed. And while we have adopted the American way of doing things, they have not worked for us because we have a very special situation. We are not the same as everyone else. And a lot of the people who want us to pretend that slavery didn't exist or to forget about it, they've never been a slave. So they don't know what we're going through. They don't know what this has done to us. It has made us as black women insecure.
Why not? Well, if that's true, why not take up for us? Why not write something that says we need
We've had everybody to take up for us, and we've always had books about black women, how great and how strong we are, and we are that. I'm just saying that we have used our strength in the wrong direction. We have used it against our men instead of standing up for them. And if we start to support our men and to speak a good word for him publicly, then so many people won't be able to come against him and tear him down. And he won't have to feel so frustrated, and he won't be outside away from us looking for peace of mind with women of other nationalities, because we actually want our own black man. We need him back in our homes, and we want to have one. We're just living in a culture where they're trying to convince us that not only do we not need a man, but there's some other options to having one. And those options mainly are celibacy or lesbianism.
There's an old saying that says, charity begins at home and spreads abroad. And
Absolutely.
in your book, you say that we are not bringing up our daughters and our sons in a correct manner to respect their fathers.
No, we're not. Unfortunately, as I say, since money has been used as the measure, many times if a black man does not have money to give us, we won't even let him see his children. We won't let him spend any time with it because he does not give us whatever the child support is. And I'm not saying that we don't need money to raise a child, but I try to explain to black women that raising a child consists of much more than feeding, clothing, and sheltering it. That's maintaining one. To raise one, you need a return of the parental coalition of the father and the mother to put the proper values into the child. Many of our boys, when we raise them alone, they grow up with the female emotional mechanism. They are suspicious, they are doubtful, they're disrespectful of womanhood, they're bitchy, they can't make a decision. And many of our girls who grow up in a home where there's no man present, they go out into the world and try to mate. They don't have any idea how to live with a man day to day, how to prepare a proper meal, how to be a mother, how to just be in love in the home. Most of what our people and our children especially have learned about how you have a relationship, they learned off of television. And television doesn't represent our needs. And so a lot of the confusion has come from outside agencies that we have not recognized how detrimental it has been to us as a people.
Can I play devil's advocate for just a
Well, I
moment?
wish you wouldn't, but I know you must. Go on.
What if I am a good wife? His home is clean. His kids are fed. I'm making sure they're well educated. I help them with their homework. I'm a good lover in bed. I help him with the finances, and I say, look at that. He still took a walk.
Well, that's something else that's been confused about my book. I advise black men and black women. I certainly tell men that if you are with a woman who you have been with for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, 6 months, 2 weeks, whatever it is, and that woman refuses to cooperate with your ideas, does not want to get with your program of right, whatever it is, then I tell those men, get rid of that woman and get another one. And I tell black women the same thing. If you are with a man that you cannot be in agreement with, then get rid of him and get with a man that you can be in agreement with. If the man you're with is not treating you the way that you want him to, and you feel that you have put in enough time to demonstrate your commitment and your sincerity of efforts to try to make the relationship work, I don't tell people to just stay in that relationship. I'm trying to teach us that we waste a lot of time being angry with each other and being dissatisfied in relationships. Get out of it and get with one where you can be happy.
You say that the black woman would like to be a clone of the white woman.
Many of us, yes. That's unfortunate.
How do you see that?
Well, that's something that was almost accidental, I'd have to say. See, the white woman has been the only mentor that we have had of a female. We've seen her every day of our life on television, every magazine, every newspaper, every commercial. It's just been her face, her body, her image, whatever it has been in front of us. And so today we have the results of that. We have black women who are trying to dye their hair blonde, who are wearing blue and green contacts in their eyes, who wear tons and tons of layers of makeup, who have changed their voice, who have hair weaves so they can have flowing long hair blowing in the wind, like Brooke Shields or somebody, And so that's been an accident. And as a result of us doing that, we have also adopted the women's liberation movement goals of wanting to be liberated from the man and have some kind of pseudo-equality. When while that may be true of the white woman and her plight with the white man, that's not really the black woman's business because we haven't been under the control of the black man for over 500 years. So what do we have to be liberated from him from?
Is there something wrong with trying to make yourself look better or more appealing?
It depends on what standard you're using as being the goal of looking better. If we think to look better is to put on a ton of makeup and have blue eyes, then there's something wrong with that. But if we think that to look better is to certainly get a better spirit in our heart and to work every day to become a better wife, a better mother, a better friend, better sister, then those values and attributes alone will make us more beautiful than we are now.
I can't play with that.
How do you feel about the fact that many people accuse you of wanting to see the black woman at a point of submission? Is that where you want to see a black woman in the 1990s?
Well, it depends on how you define submission. Those words have a tendency to have a negative connotation for us because of how they were used against us during slavery and what we connect them to. But actually, the kind of submission that I'm referring to just means cooperation and agreement. I don't think that anybody could say that I represent a woman who is subjugated in any kind of way. I don't think that anybody could say that my personality sounds like some man has me somewhere crawling around on the ground or walking 10 paces behind me. So I'm not representing that. I'm representing strength. I'm saying that we have a lot of power. We have power to make heaven and hell for our men. And I'm saying, let's try making heaven. Let's try to build him up. If a man has his woman behind him, he will believe he can do anything. And all we need to do is to get our men to believe that they can do anything. And he'll be able to, do much better than he's doing now and come out of the pitiful condition he's in. As I said, I'm not exonerating him. I'm just saying that all of that strength that we have, let's use it in a more positive way instead of just going for self. Nobody told us that all of that being my own person and I'm independent would lead to separation and loneliness. But that's what we had to trade for that. In order to have certain kinds of success, we had to give up the man because we can't find a man who will compete with us on that level. As I said, we say he can't handle us, or he's intimidated by the fact I make more money than him. I think that by judging our men on how much money he makes, we have lost a lot of good men. Because as black women, if we decide that all of us are going to just determine whether or not we're going to have a man based on how much money he makes, then none of us have no man.
But
because most black men don't have no money.
There are many men
not a lot of money.
There are many men out there who don't want a woman.
That's absolutely true.
Who is not gainfully employed.
That's
This
true.
works both ways.
And one of the things that I have always explained about that, Raven, is that for my lectures, which I do all over the country so I can give black people some ease and take some of the hysteria out of our communities that the book seems to have caused. I have security guards, not because of black women. We're going to do just what we do. We're going to fuss and we're going to cuss and do a little something, But I have it because of black men. Because the black man's guide to understand the black woman puts the black man on point. And it reminds him what he has allowed to happen to his woman and his family. Many black men become intimidated. They don't want to take responsibility for their women. They don't want the challenge. They don't want to be put on point. So they become overwhelmed. And it's them that go off. That's why I have security. Because most men know that this book puts the black man on point. It just talks about what slavery has done to the black woman, but it's really telling him what he has allowed to happen.
Let's go back to the book for just a moment. According to you, there are 3 types of black women.
Yeah, they overlap a little bit.
Can you define it just very briefly for us?
Well, we have, I kind of number them, I think, as 1, 2, and 3, and I would call them lower class, middle level, and so-called upper class, and we certainly have to acknowledge that we have those levels in our society. We see them every day. That is not a put down to recognize that we have a lower class woman who perhaps lives on the street, who is an alcoholic, a bum, who is outdoors, who is subject to abject poverty as because of a lack of education, proper training, and personal hygiene, and other kinds of information. She exists, and we need to reach her and try to raise her up differently because many of these women have children. And we have to be responsible for them. We have the mid-class women who are the number 2s, and they're kind of average. They try to do better than the lower level. And then, of course, we have the number 3 class, which is a so-called successful, black woman who is tripping about the fact that she generally has a big job and a credit card or something,
Don't you want to see black women accomplish?
Yes, I absolutely do. But if we can't accomplish saving our race, then we have not made an accomplishment. We are looking at our man become endangered. He's already endangered. Over 60% of us are single, widowed, separated, or divorced as of last year. And so we're not together. And there is one monolith in the black community, Raven. If we don't reproduce children, then our nation, our race is going to die out here. And so we sometimes tend to look at black men and say, yeah, they're in this bad condition. And we act like they're going to die out and we're going to live on. But that's not the way it's going to go. If the black man dies, all of us are going to die because he actually is the backbone of our nation. We can't produce a baby by ourselves. And going into other nationalities still just erases, our nation. And I'm trying to get us not to do that.
You have problems with interracial marriages.
Yeah, I'm not for that. Well, because of the fact that I think that God made a male and female of every nationality so that they could mate and reproduce. And I think in our particular case, a lot of us try to run to what I call race denial by trying to marry into other nationalities to try to get away from our own heritage. Many black women do that, and certainly many black men do that. So I'm trying to get them to get back together and stop trying to marry and go into other races and infiltrate them with some of the nonsense that we bring as a result of our sad slavery history.
What if a woman says to you, well, I was alone,
Fucking trash.
and he came to me at a very vulnerable point in my life, whether he's Hispanic or from the Middle East, or he's white and Caucasian, doesn't matter. And she just says, he came to me at a very vulnerable point in my life, Scheherazade, and he's good to me, and
Well,
he takes care
it's
of
not
me.
necessary for people to confess to me. I tell people all the time, I'm not taking a poll. This book is about self-examination and personal development. And if after reading this book, she thinks that she is still in the right place, then I don't have any control over that. I'm not out here as a judge. As I said, I haven't set myself up to say I'm the perfect black woman. Everyone should be about me. I have the same problems that all the rest of y'all got. I'm just trying to work with it. And this book is so brutally honest. We've never had anybody just straight talk to us about our personal problems, what happens inside the black home after the door is closed. And we have had a tendency to think that it's some kind of secret that nobody recognizes, that we don't get along. And we tend to think that somebody is going to pick this book up from some other nationality and think that all black women are like the women that I describe in this book. That's totally impossible, because the things that I describe are visible and they're audible. You can see them or you can hear them. So nobody's going to mistakenly think you do these things if they don't see them or hear them coming out of your mouth or out of your actions. You know, so there's no danger of people thinking that all of us do this.
Scheherazade, there are a lot of women out there who think, you don't like us, you don't like black women.
Oh, yes, I do. I love black women. I'm a black woman myself. I got 5 daughters and 4 sisters, so that would, be ridiculous of anybody to assume that. As I said, we have just never had anybody challenge us on our behavior. We've never had anybody to say, well, let's look at what we do. We know what he does, and he's wrong in a lot of what he does. But his wrongness, his guilt, does not ensure our innocence. We have a share in the problems that we have in the black community. And just because we are dressed up and have a job does not mean that we don't practice some aberrant behaviors that end up infecting our homes and breaking up our relationships with our men and helping to hold him down. That's all I'm saying. So everyone can look at themselves. Every man can look at his own woman. You know, this book has brought a lot of people together. This book has reunited a lot of couples who now understand what happened in their relationship. It's required reading in 15 historically black colleges and 10 white colleges. Everyone must study what slavery did to the black woman. We have never looked at it as an independent study.
May I ask you, on what do you base your information?
Just research. Being a black woman myself, living here in the country, and I interviewed over 3,000 people. I interviewed 379 black men who were married to or dating white women, over 100 black women who were married to or dating white men, and a little over 2,000 black men and over 1,000 black women. And what I found is that we don't have a control group. There was no point in me listing all of their names, because we don't have one set of Negroes that we could point at and say, okay, well, this particular group is not affected by slavery. All of us are affected by it. We just have not been able to identify the manifestation of that behavior and be able to trace it back to what the root was and how we got that way. A lot of the behavior we practice because it's trendy, it's popular in this country, and so we think that that's just the thing to do.
Do you fault the black man for anything?
Yes, absolutely. I fault him for lying.
For lying?
Yes.
About?
All kinds of things. He won't tell us the truth about his life because he knows that we can't handle the truth. And so he will lie to us about his activities and his life because it preserves the peace for him, he thinks. But we know that lies don't build a relationship. They create doubt, suspicion, and fear. And then we exhibit those behavior traits. And fear in the female is always translated as hostility. And so, see, it's a locked-in circle that I'm trying to get us to look at how these things are connected and what they produce. A lot of the anger and frustration we have at each other is really not even at each other. It's about our conditions. It's about something that's almost been genetically sent down through our womb because our men were not able to protect us. They were not able to keep the slave master from snatching our babies out of our womb or to allow us to have food or clothing. A lot of different kinds of things that happen to us that just make us tremble. They make us frightened. And so Now it's to a point where everything that the man does, we have our total emotional balance, our self-esteem, our self-respect, everything that we stand for as a female, we have it tied right now to our men's genitals, and it depends on what he does with those about whether or not
let's talk about that for just a moment.
See, this is an intense topic.
Yes,
I just
this
never
is.
get a chance to explain.
One thing I read over and over again in your book was
I know what that is.
regarding infidelity. And let me just make this here. You say in your book, there is no history of the black man settling down with one woman
Right.
and never desiring to have another, before
Right.
slavery, during slavery, or after slavery.
That's
The black man has never
gonna
been
stop me
recorded
with
to have
you a
just
bitch.
one woman.
Right. Well, I think there's some actual facts we can look at on that. Monogamy has failed for the white man in America.
But this is like saying it's okay.
It's not me saying it's okay. This is how they're living. I'm giving you the history of what their life is. Black men haven't been waiting on me to tell them it's all right to have more than one woman. Neither have white men. You know, this is just what they do. I'm not talking about fornication and adultery. I'm not talking about one-night stands and running around rampant with other women. That's not the kinds of when I say more than one woman relationship. I mean that before we came to America, our men had more than one wife and family. And we were satisfied with it because we had not met the monogamy idea. We had not met the American white woman who, you know, insists on certain kinds of values in her man.
You need to go on game time.
Learned envy and jealousy. All right, after coming here, those kinds of ideas were bred into us because of society and the mores that the Americans made up here. And so then we started to have problems with that. But I think that since it is apparent that most of them, not all of them, it's certainly up to the man, do love more than one woman. I got tons of mail. A lot of black men write and tell me that they have had two women for 5, 10, 15, and 20 years, and they can't even get the women to speak to each other. Sometimes they have two families.
Would I want to talk to a woman who's sharing perhaps the bed and the money and the social life with who I would deem as my man?
If you want to deal in reality, and if you are not insecure, and if you don't think that that robs you of something, you would want to know them. If he loves her, you certainly should want to know her.
There are a lot of black women out there who say,
Oh, I know they're mad about that idea. I understand, you know.
that
And
would
that's
never
not
hold
easy.
water.
Wait a minute, that's not easy. And that's a frightening thought to most of us. And I don't like that. I'm not for that. I'm in agreement with everybody else. Our men ought to just have one woman. But that is not the reality. I'm trying to get us to deal with some reality for a change. Stop dealing with fantasy. Stop dealing with television. Stop dealing with imagination of how we wish things were. Let's deal with them how they are, what it is, present tense. And
But
if we
because
deal with
that's
that,
happening
then
doesn't mean I have to like that or
no,
want
that
to
means
accept
that you
that.
can live in hell. That means you can live in doubt. That means that you can always be checking on your man. That means that you can be insecure and be, you know, tearful. And that means you can be disappointed when you find out the real truth. And you don't want to have that in your life. None of us do. But in order not to have that, then we have to deal with some reality and recognize that men are not limited in the way that women are. Men are able to love more than one woman. I'm not talking about, as I said, just a random sexual relationship of fornication and adultery and all of that. I mean that there are many black men who have children by more than one woman. What is to become of those children? They need their father.
Now, you say that once these relationships don't work and they start breaking up or things start going bad at home, you say, she will cry and seek sympathy. During this period, the black woman will remind the black
Shit,
man
that
of
nigga Bronco
everything
talking
she
about
has ever
500,
done.
nigga.
Yeah, we do that.
There's
She
some
will
tickets
try
on
to
this
make
bitch
him
for
feel
150,
guilty and
bro.
ashamed of his decidedly outrageous behavior.
Cowboy game.
She'll let the house go, and I quote you, to hell.
That's right.
She may
Hell
stop
yeah,
cleaning,
what?
ironing, washing, and cooking.
And they go full sex. That's
Yep.
a real tool we use.
Cowboy 49er game, man.
But if you would
Two
cheat on
tickets,
me
nigga.
or walk out
Well,
on me,
see, that's what I'm saying. We have to
151 a
get
pop.
into definition. Who told us that was cheating?
But that's-
Where did that
well,
idea
that's
come from that that's
exactly-
cheating?
not
And
bad.
I'm not saying that a lot of men are
Hell
not
no,
just running
nigga.
around.
That's
I'm
in
not talking
Dallas,
about
nigga.
that.
The Cowboy
But if
game.
a woman finds out that her man has been with a woman while she's been with him for 3 or 4 or 5 years, that's a
I
serious
mean, this up
commitment
high,
in a
nigga,
relationship.
but shit,
And
nigga.
if it hasn't taken anything from me, if I'm not going short of anything, and if this is what he thinks his responsibility is, then what kind of hell are you going to go through to prevent that? Since we cannot stop him, we have not been successful. The white woman has not been successful in stopping the white man from having another woman. They called them a mistress. We pick up a lot of that terminology. But a man who has two women, that's not necessarily a mistress. That's just his other woman. Now we got two choices.
Tampa Bay
We can
Buccaneer
be the
tickets
woman
looking
or
like.
the other woman. We don't have but those two. Now I know we don't like that. I don't like that.
fly,
You
nigga.
know,
I might
but
fly
that's
to,
the reality
Tampa
of
Bay.
our life at some point.
Ride
That's up
bacon
to the man.
there.
But every man doesn't want two women, but those that
what
do,
about our
That's King
morals
Bird.
and our religion?
whose religion? Whose
Right.
morals? Not our religion, because we're not practicing the religion of black
Thank
people
you,
anymore. That
Bird.
was taken from us.